And we are here. Welcome, 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 everybody. Just a couple minutes late today. That's all my fault as usual. I am a tech-tard. But, man, we are back with week number 2 after my 10-month hiatus with Mr. Michael Rectenwald. Man, I'm so glad you're here for this week, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. I feel like, it's one of those things where when you and I get together on these shows, I feel like we stir the pot a little bit.
We do what?
We stir the pot a little bit,
just a little.
Just a little bit. I think the last time I had you on, I was in big trouble with the Libertarian Party.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, go figure, of course. But hey, that's water under the bridge at this point. I'm an anarchist. I don't follow any political platforms anymore at this point. Forget about all that. But my friend, thank you for doing this. This is great. I wanted to do this show with you in particular. Number one, because we went through something right around the same exact time when it comes to this stuff. We're going to have a conversation about the inappropriate relationship between America and Israel, because it is very inappropriate. And it's damning to not only our financial system, it's damning to our country as a people. And it's just, we need to get this out in the air. And I don't want to make anybody hate anyone. I just want to bring truth to a matter that is important, especially in this political climate. Now, last year, you had written a book called The Cabal Question. Or you published it. You probably didn't write it last year, but it was published last year.
Yeah.
And it got you into some hot water. And right around the same time, I had gotten fired from the record label, and you knew I was on that label because you had come on one of my shows when I had a producer and shit in the background and stuff like that. And I got fired from that record label because of my questions about Israel. And then you write this book, and then you got a bunch of heat. It ended up costing you a bunch of money. So I guess we should probably open up with that, man. Like, what the hell actually happened?
Well, it kind of happened before I wrote that book. It kind of happened during the campaign when I started to criticize Israel. So when I started to really criticize Israel during the campaign, I lost the fellowship with Hillsdale College. That was worth $150,000 a year. So, and with very little work, give a few talks a year. That was nice.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I also lost my publisher, which she turned out to be a Zionist. So good riddance to her. So I put out The Cabal Question, kind of like as an answer to that. And, The Cabal Question is a novel, first of all. It's a novel that is about what happens to a guy when he starts, quote unquote, noticing. And not only to him, he starts to have legal issues, but he's also tortured psychologically. There's a lot of trauma for the guy. And he was an historian who became a historical revisionist. And after becoming a revisionist, his life completely is turned upside down. And so it's a novel, and it goes down a lot of rabbi holes. And
that's the funny thing, you say that, and I saw something online before, and it made me crack up. It says every rabbit hole ends up with the T missing. And I was like, oh my God, that is because it's true. Unfortunately, it is true. Like one way or another, it leans that way. And it's like, wow, man. And the further you go down these rabbi holes or rabbit holes or whatever you want to call them, the worse it gets, to be quite honest. And it's terrifying and sad at the very same time, especially for somebody like me who grew up hardcore Southern Baptist,
Oh, wow.
Where the church tells you like these are, and I still believe this to this day. Like the Bible says what it says. These are God's chosen, right? I will never go against the Bible. I can't do that as a God-fearing man. And I know Christianity isn't for everybody. I will never force my views on anyone, but I do understand the Bible says what it says. And I will never, ever discredit what the Bible says because of that. But I also, as a Christian, have many, many questions between the relationship between these so-called Christians and the Jews, or Zionists, or whatever you want to call them, because you hear these terms Judeo-Christian or Christian Zionist, and to be quite honest with you, like, those terms are oxymorons. They don't work. It's jumbo.
No, it's an oxymoron.
Yes, and the fact of the matter is they don't work. I mean, how can you say that, somebody, a group of people who don't believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah at all, they just think he was some man who was against the Romans trying to dodge taxes. I mean, that's what a lot of people from Israel think, or, Jews think. And that's not the case at all. But anyways, it's been.
In fact, I would say Jesus Christ was coming down on the cabal big time.
And that could very well be true, and that's, it's not, I'm not a big Bible, like, theological guy, so I don't want to speak out of turn on a lot of things, but I just have questions as a Christian of the relationship between the two, but that's neither here nor there. My biggest qualm with Israel itself is political. It's not really religious on my
right.
end.
Same here.
It's the fact that we have a certain group of people that have a stronghold on our government, and that is giving them their way time after time after time. Now, this has been going on for many decades, many, many, many decades. It just really came to fruition when Trump got elected.
Yep.
Because it went full on, he's like America first, but Israel firstest, right? I mean, that's kind of been the name of the game through all this. And
yeah.
And it's been hard to watch because we have problems here. We're a nation who's $38 trillion in debt and counting. We are a nation who is tired of war. We are tired of senseless nonsense in the Middle East. But then as soon as the orange man gets elected, he goes and bombs the shit out of Iran on the behalf of Israel, because Israel said that these people had nuclear capabilities, but there was no receipts. There was zero zip, not a receipts on any of this. So Trump just goes in there and blindly bombs Iran without any questions or concerns or anything. And that's very concerning to a lot of Americans, on top of everything else that he's been doing from there on out.
Yeah. I mean, not only did he have no receipts, the American intelligence agencies said that Iran did not have nuclear weapons. So they had the information. It was just they got totally shoehorned into it. I should say really forced by Israel. Israel forced the United States to bomb Iran effectively. There's no interest in the United States bombing Iran. In fact, that's very much against our national interests, because it could end up in a conflagration that we would be stuck in for forever. We would never win that war. It would be forever. It would be another forever war, all for regime change. Really, that's what Israel wants. They want regime change in Iran.
Well, the whole thing behind the 25 years of wars and some, really, I'm 45 years old. And the United States has been in some kind of conflict my entire life, whether it be boots on the ground or it is through proxy. One or the other, it's always been. We
right.
saw through the 1980s.
It's always been for Israel.
Yes.
All of these wars were for Israel. In fact, you mentioned the national debt. I would submit that a vast portion of the national debt is owing to our relationship with Israel. That trillions of dollars for Iraq, and then endless money to Israel. The $3.8 billion a year is just the down payment. We've sent $33 billion to Israel since October 2023. So, I mean, it's enormous. And if you look at all of look at the national debt, a lot of it came running up after they declared a war on terrorism. That's really where this comes from. And So, I mean, we still had, there was a great deal of cost to the Vietnam War, of course. But ever since Vietnam, and maybe, you could figure out some way this might be true, but ever since Vietnam, every engagement the United States has been in has been for Israel.
This is correct. Israel's the one who wanted the 7 wars in 5 years.
Right.
And the United States knocked them all out for them on behalf of them, except Iran. Iran was the last one. That was the last one that didn't get done. But we went to, Iraq. We went to Syria, Yemen, Libya,
right.
Sudan. Oh my God, I'm having a brain fart right now. We went all these places. We did 6 of the 7, right? I can't get them all out right now.
Yes.
So it's been a long day.
That's from the clean break memo, of course.
And the crazy part is there was a time in the very early 2000s when all this was happening. And, when we were first, the World Trade Centers and blah, 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 which we'll get into that later because that was a lie. The trade centers weren't a lie itself, but the story behind it is absolute bullshit. But Benjamin Netanyahu himself had come out and said, hey, if we remove Saddam Hussein out of Iraq, that will have positive reverberations on the region.
Right.
He said that. Those are his exact words. You can look it up. There's videos everywhere. And so we go off and do this, right? But Iraq and Libya have something very much in common. And that is, Iraq, number one, was they were going to start selling oil in the Iraqi dinar. And then Libya was starting to get rid of the banks and doing their own thing.
Yes, they were getting rid of the central banks, the Rothschild-based central banks. They were also going to nationalize their oil. Basically, they were giving the big FU to the regime, to the multinational terror organization that is Israel, with the United States as its hitman. Really is what we are.
And that's exactly what it is. But why? Why are we their hitmen? And it's an easy explanation, especially over the past, 30 years or so. Number one, AIPAC. First and foremost, AIPAC. Which AIPAC is the America-Israel Public Affairs Committee. It is a lobbyist group that it's not just a clever name. They lobby our government. Now, AIPAC happens to lobby over 90% of our government. Over 90. And I just saw some crazy fact. I don't know if I buy it or not. And I don't even know. I didn't have time to even look it up. But I saw 98% that they are, they are funding. And we're talking both sides. This isn't just a Republican thing or a Democrat thing. They're funding both sides. Now, obviously, the Republican Party side is taking more money in AIPAC.
The funny thing is, this is our money because this is being paid out of the money that we're sending them, the $3.8 billion every year. They're just recycling a portion back to the American political class to buy them off and totally control them. And I think there's more factors than the money. I think there's fear. There's a great deal of fear on the part of these political operatives. They're terrified of Israel. They're terrified of Zionist power. They know who holds the power, and they're terrified of them. They're afraid to go up against them. These people are running the country. How is it done? It isn't just AIPAC, I gotta say. It's also all of the Jewish billionaire donors in the United States who are giving money to AIPAC, but also directly to candidates. And in the case of Larry Ellison, he's giving money to the IDF. He's the biggest donor to the IDF in the world. $380 million he gave to the IDF, friends of the IDF. So, they terrify our politicians. Some of the threats are the fear of being called an anti-Semite, having your life ruined, and everything else, maybe even getting killed. So they have a lot of fear factor involved in the manipulation of the political class, and also they do bribe. It's bribes, and then there's the blackmail element, of course. the Epstein files.
Yeah.
So and then there's ideology, Zionist ideology, which has infiltrated the United States so thoroughly that all of our, almost all of our politicians are under this ideology, which is this ideology that Israel can do no wrong. We must be its ally no matter what they do. We must support them, and they're good. They're a force of good in the world. They're the only democracy, all that nonsense in the Middle East. But also, there's the Christian Zionist ideology, which throws in on top of the others. If you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. If you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. Of course, this was never in the Bible anywhere. It doesn't say that. It was talking about to one man, Abraham or Abram at the time, and he was referring to Abram, and he was referring to Abram's not in terms of his. So he also promised this to Abram's posterity. But the thing is, he wasn't talking to Abraham in terms of genetic lineage. It's not that everyone that has your genes, and we'll get into the question of that later, but everybody that has your genes needs to be blessed, or else the persons who do not bless them and curse them will be cursed. So, but really, this was about faith. So what he was referring to with Abram's seed was Christ, as Christians hold it, and faith in general, belief in God and in the one God. So that's really what this was about. And so they've got these, don't forget the Schofield Bible was a Zionist psyop.
That's the Rothschild Bible. The Rothschilds funded the writing of that Bible, which churches grabbed a hold of in the early 1900s and ran with it, which is why you're seeing so much quote unquote Christian Zionism, or Judeo-Christian, whatever you want to call it. There's all these terms now. This is why you're seeing it, in the Schofield Bible is very bastardized compared to the original writings. Let's just put
it's just a bunch of footnotes, and they're adding all these footnotes trying to steer everything towards the inevitability and necessary support for the state of Israel. The Schofield Bible is a Zionist Bible. It's completely constructed by Zionists, paid for by Zionists. Cyrus Schofield was a crook and a con man, and they picked him to annotate the Bible that got published by Oxford University, and unbelievably so. And that the rest is history. They've got the whole denominations of Christianity under their thumb. Not all of them, but a good deal of them, especially evangelicals. But not all the evangelicals, I got to say, because I actually am an evangelical Christian, and I go to an evangelical church that is not Zionist. Strangely enough,
that is very strange. Now, we speak of the AIPAC influence and the Epstein, sexual blackmail within our government, which is very real. But the fact of the matter is, this started, October 7th, 2023 or 22 now. Yeah, 2023. Israel was quote unquote attacked by Hamas.
Right.
Now, I have a hard time with that because Israel's borders are like some of the strongest borders you will ever see in the entire world. Charlie Kirk, said it best. You can't even walk 10 feet in Gaza without seeing some IDF soldier with some sort of machine gun. So, and the fact that this went on for hours and hours and hours untouched brings a lot of questions. And I don't have receipts and I don't know everything, so I don't want to speak out of turn about it, but I will say things do not line up when it comes to that, just because I know how the Israeli borders work.
An easy receipt to get is the fact that an Israeli soldier testified before the Knesset, and told the Knesset under oath, by the way, this was not just some casual conversation, that in fact his unit got the command to not approach the border. Interestingly, they got this command either simultaneous with the breaching of the border by Hamas or before then. It's hard to tell, but it was very soon after, if anything. So they were told to stand down. He got the order to stand down. This was an Israeli soldier who's testified before the Knesset under oath.
Wow. Now leading up to this situation, at that point in time, Joe Biden was the largest receiver of AIPAC money since 1990. And then this happens. And then, and before that, there was all this money going to Ukraine. Then this happens on October 7th, which, mind you, just weeks before this happened, the people of Israel, the Israeli citizens, were storming the streets protesting against Netanyahu, pretty much telling him that he was a Hitler type, dictator. And then this happens. And then all of a sudden, he comes in and saves the day and everybody loves him. It's really
exactly like 9/11, because right before 9/11, there was going to be, there was a great deal of protests in fact, I led a group, Citizens for Legitimate Government, that protested the theft of the election in 2000. Right before 9/11 happened, there was going to be a major article in Newsweek that was going to show that Bush was an illegitimate president. Then 9/11 happened and they pulled the issue, never ran, naturally, because they got everybody rallied behind Bush just before he was going to be, exposed just before 9/11. They had the issue already ready to go. And then, of course, whenever 9/11 happened, they pulled that issue and that became obsolete. And so it's the same story. Netanyahu was in deep political trouble in Israel. And then you have 10/7 happen. Where's the 10/7 truth movement? That's what I'd like to know.
I don't think they're allowed to have a truth movement about it, to be quite honest. And, here in the States, sure. But right now, Benjamin Netanyahu is such a lunatic. He stopped traveling visas or traveling passports for citizens. Like Israeli citizens were trying to get the hell out of Dodge because they don't want to get bombed and killed and they don't want their families to be blown up. And Netanyahu's paused that and said, no, we're not giving out no passports. You're stuck.
He made him a captive. And then they stood down, and not only did they stand down for 6 to 7 hours, then when they were finally engaged in battle, who knows really, they unleashed the Hannibal Directive, and this allowed all of their military in helicopters and tanks to fire on their own people. So a great deal of the people killed on 10/7 were killed by the IDF.
Well, yeah, because they were killing their own. That
Yes.
was exactly what you're talking about. You're like, hey, if you're going to get caught and held captive, your fellow man's got to kill you or whatever. I'm going to hit this chat real quick just because it's been live. Let's see. Jacob Day, glad to see Michael on the show. What up, Jacob? How you doing?
Thanks, man.
Terry Batts, hi guys, shared on X. Thank you very much, Terry. She's behind the scenes at Are You Smarter Than a Politician? Man, Chris Forstner, laundering our tax dollars to their choice of politicians to maintain the flow of cash and power. You hit that nail on the head, brother. You better just come on my podcast.
Absolutely correct.
And then how many Pearl Harbors can happen before people wake up? Seriously, how many times can that happen?
I mean, how many false flags? And every time, right? Every time it's the same story. Most people fall for the official narrative. Years later, there's these dissidents that say, no, this is total BS. This thing was at least an inside-outside job, which is what I would characterize October 7th as, and 9/11, an inside-outside job. There's both parties in play. Israel had to coordinate with Hamas in order to let them in the first place. In fact, there is video of somebody, either a Mossad or some kind of agents, letting in the Hamas fighters through a gate. They didn't blow any holes in the wall. The gate was open for them. Then the IDF went to town on their own people. Look at all those charred cars. They could not have been hit. That damage is not attributable to Hamas. They didn't have the weaponry to make that happen. These were Hellfire missiles fired by Israel. So all of those cars that were blown up were all blown up by the IDF, or IOF. We should say IOF, because they're hardly a defensive force.
Right. And that's, they've been doing this forever. But, we move on. Biden starts funding Israel, kind of throws Ukraine to the back burner. Zelensky's like, hey, man, what about me? But, Israel is Israel, and they get they're their top dog or whatever. Trump comes in and goes completely all in on this Israel first rhetoric.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to point out some things why this happened. And it's because he's owned, and I'm going to prove it to you right now. You guys can look this up anywhere. Google is a great tool to find things and information. But let's start here.
I would say Google's a horrible source. I would use Yandex.com.
Yes.
Much better search engine. I mention it I allude to such a site, such a search engine in my book, The Cabal Question.
Oh, right on. But, the fact of the matter is Trump went belly up in Atlantic City. He was bankrupt and he was in a lot of trouble. And a gentleman named Wilbur Ross, who had major ties to the Rothschilds, pretty much like, I don't want to say the right-hand man, but he was their dog. Like he was a go-getter for the Rothschild family. And the fact is that Wilbur Ross rounded up 72 Jewish banksters to bail out Donald Trump in Atlantic City.
Correct.
They bailed him out. They got over $1 billion. I don't want to, it might have been $2 billion, but they got him over $1 billion to get him out of this situation. And then surprise, surprise, Mr. Wilbur Ross gets a job in the first Trump administration.
Yeah.
As the Secretary of Commerce.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look at the guy he's got in there now. The current Secretary of Commerce.
Howard Lutnick.
Lutnick was a neighbor of Epstein's, of course. He was also very instrumental in helping Trump early on. And he's also, of course, he's a dyed-in-the-wool Zionist. That goes without saying. Any of these Jewish billionaires or elites are all Zionists. So I get asked on X, why don't you say Jews? I say because it's not precise. Okay, that's the reason. But most of the Zionists at the top, of course, are Jewish. There's no question about it. They're the basic. This is the real beneficiaries. And what this is, what you mentioned about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a made man. That's basically what this means.
Right.
So this is a mob. Okay, we're talking about a gang. You know how Hans Hermann Hoppe talks about the state as a gang of robbers, thieves, and killers, and liars, I would add, and propagandists, and so on and so forth. That's what the state is. Well, this is what this mob is. They are a bunch of criminals. This is a criminal cabal, and it's an international crime syndicate. And Israel is just a geopolitical headquarters and a possible hideout for some of these people. It's just the place that was set aside so that then they would have a state. And then all of what comes along with having a state? Well, you get exemption from the non-aggression principle, of course. The only entity on earth that can instigate aggression and still be legal. The state. So Israel, this Zionist cabal, or what became a Zionist cabal, they knew they needed to get a state in their hands. And that's why they got Israel. And then, of course, they quickly moved to get nuclear weapons, which they stole the materials for and some of the technology from the United States. Then they hid it from us when JFK tried to get inspectors in. They put up a phony control booth and so forth, and completely and utterly bamboozled the inspectors. I mean, this is unbelievable what these people have done. And then, of course, there's the USS Liberty, which they shot at unprovoked and almost sunk, and killed many sailors on that ship. I mean,
which the United States still calls an accident. But if you were to listen to anybody who's still alive on that ship, Candace Owens had a gentleman on her show that was a survivor of that.
Right.
And his story is absolutely damning. And not only did they not stop bombing, it was a straight up attack. It wasn't an accident. An attack would be like, hey, we bombed you one time. And oh, I'm sorry, guy. That's it.
No, they
bombed the shit out of that ship.
Yeah, they were trying to sink it for sure. And they didn't sink it. That's why they had to cover it up now, because they were hoping there'd be no survivors. With no survivors, there's no evidence of anything, except that there wouldn't even be evidence that Israel was involved, that the Israel's Air Force was involved. So they wanted to sink it totally, so there would be no survivors and no witnesses. Just what they're doing in Gaza. That's why they're killing all these doctors, reporters, etc. More reporters killed in that onslaught than have been killed in any war in the history of humanity, as far as we know. More reporters killed than any other conflict. I think it's like 286 lawyers. Then not lawyers, reporters. Then there's all the doctors that have been killed. So these people are witnesses to the crime. That's why they try to kill them. It's not because, we hate doctors and we hate reporters. Well, the reporters can get the news out, but if they survive, they're witnesses to the crime. Same with doctors. Doctors are even a more dangerous contingent because, look, they have no political axe to grind. They're there just to save people's lives. And you're shooting, having them around as a witness, saying we treated children with shots to the head and chest that had to be precision shots. Sometimes the same child shot in the head and the chest. So, I mean, the crimes are so blatant, So, and if they're committing those crimes there, and then, of course, everything to do with the United States is criminal. Every part of our relationship. First of all, we have a law in the book that forbids us, the United States that is, from sending any aid to an undeclared nuclear power. Okay, so every penny that we send Israel is actually breaking the law of the United States, not international law, U.S. law. And then, of course, if you look at AIPAC, see, once you recognize these people are the ruling class, all this makes sense. Okay, this is the Murray Rothbard idea of the ruling class, by the way, that I'm using, not some Marxist shit.
Right.
I'm talking about the people that hold power of the state primarily. They have to have the state to have real power, right? You can have all the media you want, but if you don't have control of the levers of the state, you're just trying to influence people instead of completely controlling the state, which is what has happened now. They completely control the state. Now, you could say, oh, some of the things that happen, they have nothing to do with Zionism. Well, that's true in a sense, unless you expand the definition of Zionism. I think there's two basic prongs. First of all, it's an ideology for the extension of the state of Israel, but that's a minor part of it, really. The bigger prong is it wants to have control of other governments. That's the key. they don't just want to control one state; they want to control them all. Okay,
which is why APAC is in Taiwan. They were just recently in Taiwan, and I think that has something to do with they know they're losing. They're losing America.
Yeah,
they are losing America.
And let's not talk about them as Jews. I'll tell you why. They're not. They're not largely. They're not Semites. Let's be real about that.
Oh my gosh, wow, you're speaking to my heart right now. Because if
I know the Khazar theory, of course, but the thing is, there's genetic information that makes that very clear. This is why, of course, the genetic testing for genealogical purposes is illegal in Israel.
You have to get a police order in order to get a DNA test for your lineage or whatever. But I'll tell you right now, all of you who are listening right now, if you were to give everybody a DNA test in Israel right now, you would find that the Palestinians lineage, or they have much more lineage to the state of Israel than the people who are running the show right now. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Netanyahu's from Poland. I just learned this.
Yes, of course.
Netanyahu is an Ashkenazi Jew, which makes a lot of sense. Ashkenazi Jews are Jews from Europe, whether they be from Poland or Russia or even Ukraine, which is let's do a follow the money thing for a minute. Because remember when, hey guys, you guys remember when Donald Trump said he was going to end the war in Ukraine day one and it's going to be over? And now all of a sudden he's sending them more money and weapons. Do you know why he's doing that? I can tell you why. It's because Ashkenazi Jews from Ukraine have been in their parliament and or diplomats in the past. Right now, there's no active Ukrainian Jews in their government. Not really.
Excuse me.
Oh, man, get it, bro. You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. But what I was going to say here is, and on that score, there's the possibility that there are some serious grievances that have been held by these Ashkenazi Jews toward the Russians. Going back to the Pale of Settlements, of course, the way Jews were in ghettos in Russia. And by ghettos, I mean just ethnically monocultural enclaves. You had the Pale of Settlements, and of course, before that, of course, you're going back over 1,000 years. There was, of course, the fact that whatever is now, it was not called Russia then, but what is now called Russia attacked this Khazarian empire and destroyed it. That would be a real ancient wound. I don't know that their memory is that long, but it's possible.
Well, I mean, something did happen in Russia in 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution that was led by Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks, who slaughtered 30 million Christians plus. That's there. Some would say up to 60 million.
I would say
but 30 million Christians plus were slaughtered during the Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolsheviks were well over 3/4 Jewish.
Yeah.
And there's
the leadership. Be clear there, because they'll get you for that. You got to. It's just the leadership. They had, of course, Ruskies among the foot soldiers, the rank and file. But this is the leadership class of this was largely Jewish. To say nothing, of course, of the very origin of Marxism itself. Marx's own father was a crypto who had converted to Protestantism, but his father had been a rabbi. So, I mean, yes. And Marx wasn't even really his real name. It's Mordecai, I think, or something like that. But in any case, going all the way back there, you have that origin. But the thing is, like, who are these people? I really don't know what they are. I don't think they're really an ethnicity. They're not really a religion. I think it's more like a club. But it's kind of like a club that you have to get membership in. And, you can get it various ways by, converting and then being in the upper echelons, In the case of Trump, that he's a made man, so he's in it because he's kind of like if it's a mob, he's kind of like a mid-level mobster. And then, that they have some stuff on, so they have control of him.
Well, that and all the money, because,
money.
We talked about Wilbur Ross and that happened, right? And then this time around, when he's running for office, Miriam Adelson comes through and gives him his campaign a cool $100 million.
Hey, are we getting any good chats here, by the way? I want to hear some.
Yeah, let's see. Oh boy, these are actually kind of funny.
Okay, let's hear them. No, don't censor.
Zach, Legacy Zach, stop it, you anti-Semite. No, we're done being called anti-Semites. We're not going through that.
Is this guy being ironic, or is he really saying that?
No, he's being funny. He's
okay. I thought so.
That's my boy, who actually happens to be Jewish.
Okay, yeah. Listen,
I don't hate Jews.
Neither do I. I mean, to tell you the truth, a lot of my rabbi holes were presented to me by a Jewish person. So
right, and. Zach attack again. Marx was raised a gay Lutheran. And then Chris says and dies a gay commie.
No, I don't think he was gay. I mean, after all, he did have a child with his servant. He did impregnate his servant, and then Engels, to save Marx's reputation with his wife, said it was his kid. What a cuck that guy was. Engels, maybe the biggest cuck in history, really.
That's hilarious, man. Too funny. But, Miriam Adelson, who happens to be a dual citizen, by the way.
They're all dual citizens, because all you have to do is say, I'm in. Come. What's that?
We have dual citizens in our Congress, which we could totally get into that. But Miriam Adelson gives him $100 million. And then just recently, Trump is on live television stroking off the Israeli parliament like hardcore. Most of you probably saw that. And then he actually calls out Miriam Adelson, Miriam, and he asked her straight up, who do you love more, America or Israel? And she didn't answer, bro. She didn't say a damn thing. And whoa, that was like a very eye-opening epiphany for me. Because I was like, holy shit, these people really do not care.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, look, there's this passion, extremely tribal nature here, a tribalism that's really, it's something that I had no sense about in any group to this degree that this group has. Is a severe tribalism for whatever reason. Now, McDonald's culture of critique would say, frankly, they were an embattled and beleaguered people that likewise became extremely tribalistic and paranoid and hostile in effect. So, I mean, there's that way of looking at it. So, I mean, I'm just saying they are paranoid. They are psychopaths. Okay. And they are belligerent beyond words. Right. And they have, they're psychopaths. So what that means, they don't have morals. Okay. They don't have morals. It's not that they don't have our morals. They don't have any morals.
Right.
I mean, the idea of principles, it means nothing to these people. Like you and I hold dear to the principle of the non-aggression principle, right? Mm-hmm. We are principled people. That's a joke to these people. They're like more like beasts in a way. They don't think in that way. It's more visceral and it's more really physical. They have a certain tribalistic supremacy and a kind of antipathy for all the other tribes or whatever they conceive. We're not. I don't even think there's much tribalism among so-called whites. I don't see much tribalism at all. In fact, people, that's what a lot of people will critique libertarianism for, frankly, because it'll say you're leaving yourselves open. You're all like stray sheep, get ready to be picked off, because you don't see that mutual self-interest with other people is actually very important. Well, they are. And so I got a lot of shit from libertarians because I started calling this stuff up. And one of the things that I was called was a collectivist, which is what they're. So my retort is, so if I notice groups acting as a collective in a coordinated way, I'm a collectivist. I would think they're the collectivists. I'm just observing their collectivism. How does this work? Anyway, just a little beef I had about some libertarians giving me.
Well, you know what? But I have a beef too. And I left. I'm no longer a part of the LP. I'm not in news anymore. I'm not doing any of this stuff. And I'm completely over it. And the fact of the matter is part of it now. During the last presidential election, you ran for president for the Libertarian Party. And you were there at the convention when Donald Trump showed up, Yeah. And how should I word this? We watched the Libertarian Party go full collective and say, hey, we need to vote for this man in order to save our republic. Now, you had guys like, Scott Horton and Dave Smith who are going, Israel's bad. Our relationship with Israel's bad. It's inappropriate. They get us into all these messes. As a matter of fact, Dave Smith had the perfect analogy ever talking to Charlie Kirk, actually. We said, hey, if you have a friend that is getting you into a bunch of trouble, getting you into fights, costing you money, getting you black eyes and stuff like that, and just, being a menace and getting you in trouble, at some point, you have to stop hanging out with that friend. Dave Smith said that.
I think it's, I got to say, I don't like the analogy. I'll tell you why. And this is I don't really care whether Dave Smith, whether this is some sort of discrediting of him. I don't care. It's not an apt analogy because they aren't just a friend. Okay. This is not a friend. This is a bully. Okay. That has power over you. Okay. You're not a friend, a co-equal with these people. They have power over you, and they have the force, and they have no conscience. So that's what you're dealing with. It isn't like a rogue friend. This is a psychopathic beast that we're talking about here.
Right.
Okay. So if you ever even thought of having friendship with these people, you're already deluded. Okay. Right. There's no friendship to be had. It's because I'm not talking about the Jews here. I'm talking about this group. I'll call them Zionists because that's the thing they really that's the umbrella they put themselves under. This is we're dealing with a criminal cabal. I mean, if you say that, which I have done, they'll come after you in various ways.
And they do. I lived it too. It's kind of crazy. It didn't cost me $150,000. I'm, in the grand scheme of things, I'm nobody in this podcast world. I just happen to be.
I don't think we even talked about that. Did we? Did we mention that I had lost that fellowship? Yeah, I guess we did.
Oh yeah.
$150,000 a year, and it was a total sinecure. I really didn't have to do anything.
But here's the catch, guys. We have a nation that not only blackmails or not only bribes us. Now, first off, let's start here. Did you know back in the day when a politician committed treason, they became tree ornaments in the streets? If you catch my drift, all right. That was the punishment for treason way back when. Now you have a government that is collecting foreign bribes via lobby. Lobby is just another word for bribe, though. And we're talking, Donald Trump has gotten $230 million from AIPAC. He is now the biggest receiver of AIPAC money of anybody ever. He surpassed Joe Biden by far. Joe Biden only got like $11 million from AIPAC only, but compared to what Trump got, that's small peanuts. And even Kamala Harris has received about $5 million from AIPAC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they try to buy both sides, so they have a
Yeah.
control. Yeah, they don't want any opposition.
But because of Wilbur Ross and Maria Madelson, they got Trump by the short hairs. And then you throw in the Epstein stuff, forget about it. Seriously, forget about it. Now, Trump campaigned on one of his things was, hey, we're going to release Epstein files. Great. Let's do it. Let's party. Unredacted, we're going to get them done. And now all of a sudden it's a Democrat hoax. All of a sudden we're like,
they changed the story 5-6 times. I mean, it's ridiculous. But here's the thing: why is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail?
Yes. Why is she in jail?
For a hoax.
Why did Prince Andrew have to pay off Virginia Giuffre anywhere between $12 to $20 million, which most likely the Queen Elizabeth and Prince Andrew had to pay because he didn't have no damn money, Oh, and also why is speaking of oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart right now. The girl, she just died.
The girl, what girl, man?
No, the girl Virginia Giuffre. I'm so sorry. I had a big brain fart right now. They don't call me Buds for no reason, guys. Let's just say that. But no, so Virginia Giuffre, who just recently, quote unquote, killed herself, right after putting out a post or a tweet saying, hey, I am not suicidal, has just come out with a memoir where she had talked about how she was brutally raped by the Israeli prime minister back then, who happened to be Ehud Barak.
Yep.
And did unspeakable things to where she was bleeding from literally everywhere. It's very graphic. I'm not going to get into all that. It's gross. Okay. So don't tell me that Israel doesn't have a play in this. Also, to debunk all this shit where Trump will say Epstein was nobody and he was whatever. Jeffrey Epstein was a school teacher before all of this. He was a school teacher who got in trouble for having inappropriate relationships or conversations with his students, which is why he got fired. And then all of a sudden, this guy's got private jets and millions of dollars. That motherfucker was chosen, dude. That wasn't by accident. He was chosen by Israel. Why? Because Ghislaine Maxwell's daddy, Robert Maxwell, was a Mossad agent. And then later on, a bunch of emails by Ehud Barak leak out that says Jeffrey Epstein had serious ties to Israeli intelligence. Get it out. Oh my God. Say it 5 times fast. But seriously, we have all these receipts that says, hey, this is real. And then this clown's going to say, no, this is a hoax. Is it because you have the most pictures with Jeff? Is that it, Trump? Is that because we have multiple pictures of you and Jeff hanging out?
Yeah, I don't know what Trump did. I don't think Trump did anything with young girls at all.
But he's protecting it.
Yeah.
And that makes it no better.
Because he has other vulnerabilities. And those are financial, as you pointed out.
Right. So, we pointed out many things on how this relationship between the United States and Israel is beyond inappropriate. And the fact of the matter is it's costing taxpayers billions of dollars. Oh, here's something fun I just saw.
You might say it's rape, frankly.
No, it's
relationship.
It's definitely rape, and they don't even spit on it first.
Right.
But check this out. I just saw something that said Germany has paid $70 billion to Israel in reparations.
Mm-hmm.
But the United States has given $250 billion to Israel throughout the years. And what have they ever done to us? And what do we ever do to them? We've never done anything to them. And what have they done for us? Nothing. They drag us into wars and they cost us a bunch of money. The relationship isn't a fair relationship. It's not a fair trade-off. It's not anything that is in benefit of the United States citizens. It devalues
we're hostages to them. Our political class our political class consists of hostages to Israel. That's exactly what they are. They can't get out of this bind for whatever reason. So,
holy smokes, Lady Liberty says Virginia died in outback Western Australia of all places. Couldn't hide even there. Wow. That I did not know. Wow. Wow, that's huge. But hey, they're our greatest ally, right? Everything's fine, act natural. None of the wars.
By the way, you know that I started a political PAC.
I was going to ask you about that. Let's get in the AZA PAC. Let's talk about it.
As a PAC, yeah. We're the Anti-Zionist America Political Action Committee, as a PAC, first of its kind, one and only anti-Zionist PAC, explicitly against Zionism. Yeah, exactly. So. It is look, what we're arguing here is that we have to get all of this aid cut. We must cut this parasite off of us somehow. It's a parasite that now has control over us. We need to get all the funding out. We need to get no more funding to Israel's arms military aid. Of course, no politicians taking money from AIPAC or any of the other dozens of Jewish PACs and lobbies. We want complete independence from Israel. And that's just, we're looking for national sovereignty. That's all it is. And also, we say that it would help the world at large. Because without the United States, Israel can't be the menace that it is. The United States is enabling Israel to do everything that it's doing.
Yes.
So
and enough already. Enough is Scott Horton.
If we cut that aid, we cut that military aid and all the aid, then it serves the purposes of world peace. It is actually a higher moral act than simply acting in self-interest. It just so happens that if we act out of our own self-interest, it benefits humanity at large.
Which is where we're at. We, as a country right now, need to be unapologetically America only. And I said it last week, and I'm going to keep saying it until we're there. None of this America first shit. America first doesn't mean anything.
No,
it means nothing because our tax dollars are still leaving these borders, and they're still giving other countries their way on our backs, our dollar, our blood. We are done. You need to be unapologetically America only. And I'm not just saying for the whole Zionist movement. Like, look what just happened in New York.
Yeah.
New York just elected the first Muslim mayor of the city,
yeah.
Who is openly a democratic socialist. But riddle me this, you guys. Riddle me this, because this is insane. New York has a massive Jewish population. Massive. Still massive that they're crawling around in the sewers like fucking Ninja Turtles, dude. I'm serious. There's videos of them crawling in these underground tunnels and have tables and chairs and bookshelves and shit down there like they're fucking Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And the police had to go in there and break it up. And while the police are breaking, there's videos of this shit. Look it up, man. It's everywhere. And they're spitting on the cops and they're going after this and that. But you're telling me that a large, massive Jewish population just elected?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of what I'm hearing is this, that the younger Jewish population actually has come around to opposing Israel. And they, in large numbers, went for Mamdani. There was a landslide, and I think it's really a referendum on Zionism because there's nothing else about this guy that you could possibly like. He's, he wants to have like basically government-owned grocery stores. I mean, this guy is looking to make us into like, Soviet Union, and where we go into the grocery store and there's like a choice between in the vegetable section or the fruits. You get one cantaloupe and like one grape. This is what we'd end up with. But that's not why he got elected. He didn't get elected because people had faith in his economic policies, which are ludicrous. He got elected because he stood on a stage, and when they were asking the other candidates of the Democratic Party, where would you go after being elected? Where would you go? What the hell kind of question? So they all said they would go to Israel, except for Donnie. He said, I would stay in New York because that's what I was elected to do, is serve New York, not Israel. And then he also said that Netanyahu, he would arrest Netanyahu if he became mayor.
Okay. Okay. Just like the EU is like, hey, man, we're going to get you. We're putting all these crimes against you. Ain't going to do shit, dude. They'll kill you before they kill them.
So I think it's a really good sign, despite, how ludicrous a candidate this guy is. His economic policies are dog dirt or worse. They're deadly, but it ain't going to happen anyway. The real referendum is a referendum on Zionism. So it's a victory for anti-Zionism because it shows that there's a big wave of anti-Zionist sentiment. And I think it's going to, become more prominent by the midterms.
New York is going to turn into Dearborn, Michigan, but at a much higher level because it's much bigger. Dearborn's small. Dearborn isn't it's just outside of Detroit. It's it is a city, but compared to like Detroit, it's very small. Now, Dearborn's just a 20-minute drive from. I'm actually working there right now in Dearborn, Michigan. There's a massive mosque on Ford Road, and they just happen to put it right between. There's on the left-hand side, there is a Catholic church. And on the right-hand side, there's an Armenian Orthodox church.
Oh, wow.
And they put it right smack dab in the middle. And this place is massive. I'll have to take a picture of it while I'm working out there. But let me tell you something else. The takeover is real.
Yeah.
When it comes to this. Like right now, as we speak, I was working down there over the summer, and I happened to get a traffic violation. I got a ticket. I got pulled over. The cop that pulled me over was Arab. Okay? Whatever. I don't give a shit about any of that. Well, kind of, sort of, because it's, the takeover is happening, obviously. But like, at the time I'm thinking, hey, man, he needs a job too, whatever. But then I went to court to fight said ticket, and my magistrate was Arab. And I said, oh boy, okay, this is getting weird. And then just recently, a video surfaced of the mayor of Dearborn, who is trying to actively force out a white gentleman who is a citizen there for a long time. He's an old guy. He's silverback. He's been there forever. They're trying to force him out because he was against, he spoke out against Dearborn renaming a street to a gentleman named, renaming the street name to Osama Siblani, which is an Arab reporter, Muslim reporter, who happens to be super pro Hezbollah and Hamas. Wow. And so obviously this gentleman.
Yeah. So we got to reconcile these two things then. Okay, let's try to do that. How do we reconcile this? What I've described earlier and we've described together as Zionist control over the government. How do we reconcile that with apparent, say, Muslim enclaves run by Muslim satraps, effectively just regional managers of a particular place, and it's going to be very amenable and very friendly to Muslims, but maybe not so friendly to others. So how do you reconcile those two things? What's your take? Because I have one.
There's no reconciliation between the Muslims and the Jews. It's never going to happen.
No, I don't mean that. I don't mean a reconciliation between them. How do you reconcile the fact that you have a Zionist control over the government in the United States, and then you have these Muslim enclaves controlled by Muslim leaders?
That I don't necessarily have an answer to that other than if you are not American born and a believer in Jesus Christ, because this isn't a Christian country. Well, and I'll probably get a lot of shit for this and lose some listeners for it, but I don't care. I really don't care, because I'm not only unapologetically America only, I am unapologetically Christ is King. Okay. Now, if you cannot, like, I'm all for religious freedom, right? You can do your thing and I don't care, but you don't get to tell me how to do my thing, which is what's happening here in the United States. And Americans and Christians are letting it happen. Until we say, hey, until Americans and Christians say, hey, if you are not willing to mind your business and stay in your lane, get the fuck out of here. Leave. You have to go. I don't care if you worship and do whatever you want. You don't get to tell me how I worship and do whatever. Okay. Right. That's where I'm at. That's the one way I would ratify it. And that sounds like super like statist bullshit to most people. And I'm supposed to be an anarchist, but no, we have values here in America. We have American values. We have Christian values, and we've been doing this since the beginning. Okay. And if you don't like our ways, don't come here. But if you want to come here and do your thing, that's fine. But you don't get to tell us what to do. And the moment you start telling us what to do, you're gone. Get the fuck out of here. We are kicking you out. There's a reason why the Jews have been kicked out of 109 countries. Okay. And it's and the Muslims are actually working on they're working their way up to that, because they won't stop. Like, think about this. You can drive past that massive mosque that I was telling you about, and you can hear during certain times of the day, you know what I mean? They're doing the prayer thing or whatever. Could you imagine if that Catholic church next door was ringing their church bells? Could you imagine? Because it's happened before here in Michigan, where they told churches to not ring their bells.
Yeah. I think it's a strange thing, but I think that this is what I would refer to as domestic Zionism. Okay. The purpose of domestic Zionism is to weaken the host population. And that is to weaken their homogeneity, because that is a source of strength. Likewise, they want to water down the population, have multiculturalism and all this. This weakens the majority and makes, hopefully makes them a very, a minority at some point. That's what they would prefer, because they don't feel good in countries that have a homogeneous dominant population that is also represented in the state. They call that fascism. That's what they call fascism. There is fascism, but that's not it. They hate all forms of nationalism that isn't Zionist nationalism. All other forms of nationalism are forbidden. Only Zionist nationalism is allowed. So they want to ruin the country. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Well, it's funny that you bring up nationalism, though, because the powers that be are actually terrified of nationalism. Terrified. Yeah. You want to know why? And the perfect example is World War II. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, first off, number one, the whole Nazi thing is a made-up term by the Jews, which kind of means like imbecile, like, something like that, whatever. What Adolf Hitler and those soldiers were National Socialists.
Right.
They weren't necessarily Nazis. Now, National Socialism, when World War II came in, Adolf Hitler took control of Germany in 1933. And before that, Germany looked very similar to what America looks like today. Yeah. Massive, like, unemployment rates, homelessness was out of control.
Inflation. LGBTQIA.
Oh my gosh. All that stuff, the alphabet community was running amok, and people were like, what? That was happening back then? As a matter of fact, they were doing trans surgeries. A man named Magnus Hirschfeld was doing trans surgery. He was the first to do the trans surgery, who was an atheist Jew. But they're the ones who kind of started this. And Hitler had come in and was like, hey, man, and don't get me wrong. Like, listen, you guys, two things can be right at the same time. Hitler did bad shit. He killed people. for just reasons, whatever.
I mean, look, even one person put in a concentration camp for political reasons or others
is wrong.
Is wrong. Yeah.
Is wrong. But what they tell you in the history books is not necessarily how it went down. Right. Now, the history books will say that Adolf Hitler wanted a superb Aryan nation, blonde hair, blue eyes, and it was just about the white people, white power and stuff like that. That couldn't be further from the truth. Now, did he hate Jews? Yes. I've read Mein Kampf. He did. Jews.
He comes right out and says, that's when I became an anti-Semite.
But the fact of the matter is the whole thing had to do with Jewish degeneracy, the degeneracy that was going on with the LGBTQ. Think about how taboo like transgenderism right now still is in 2025. People aren't necessarily ready to accept that. I'm not going to play make-believe. That's for damn sure, man. If you got a dick, you're a dude. And if you got a vag, you're a chick. And that's that, man. I'm not playing make-believe with y'all. But think in the 1930s, or even, when this is going down, like that was like, whoa, bro, that is not allowed to happen. Now, not only were they, doing that, but, they had the inflation, the money was a mess. The economy was a disaster. It was in bad shape, just like America, as you see it right now.
Yeah.
And Hitler came in and pretty much told the Rothschild banks, fuck you, we're not doing this anymore. Get out of my country. And he did it. And within 3 years, everyone had jobs. Everyone had a place to live. They were giving out interest-free loans, right? Mm-hmm. They were doing all these things. And in the meantime, he started arresting Jewish bankers, including Baron Rothschild.
Yeah.
There was a newspaper article. You can look it up. He had Baron Rothschild cleaning floors with a toothbrush.
Yes.
Now, people talk about the United States getting involved in World War II because of Pearl Harbor, and that is not true. I mean, well, it's true to a point because the United States government had intelligence that was going to happen. They even had particular dates where it could happen, and they let it happen because they needed that false flag event to get involved in the war in the first place.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so the fact of the matter is, the real truth is, the United States got involved in World War II because Hitler kicked out the Rothschild banks and arrested one of the Rothschilds and told the Jews to get out of the country and killed them, and that's bad. Now, were his grievances against them legit? Absolutely, because we have the same grievances right now, but I don't want to kill people over it. Right. I might want to maybe deport them over it.
No. See, we must take the moral high ground completely. We must be better than them. We can't become like them. If we become like them, then we are ruined. What is the difference at that point? Who cares who wins if we become like them? We have to have the most stringent moral standards in terms of aggression, in terms of robbery and extortion and everything else that they engage in. We can't do any of that. We can't not.
No, we really can't. But the truth is that they went after him because he left the monetary system, just like Saddam Hussein was trying to do, and just like Muammar Gaddafi was trying to do. And this is where it all comes together now, okay, you guys? This is the whole purpose of this conversation of what is happening right now. Nobody's edgelording anybody. Nobody's saying was right or wrong or anything like that. What we're saying is this is the truth of what is happening. This is the truth behind the people who are running our politicians right now and running our country into the ground. All the wars over the past 30, 40 years have been on the behalf of Israel. To do with American freedom and or liberty. And this is the fun part. This isn't fun, but this is the crazy part. Remember when in the 80s, Iraq and Iran were at war? We were funding Saddam Hussein.
Right, we funded him. And then, of course, we
picked his side. Guess who was paying? Guess who was funding the other side? And we're quote unquote allies. Israel was funding Iran during that time. And now all of a sudden Israel has a problem with Iran. Like, is this all smoke and mirrors? Is this all about banksters? And it's all about banksters. That is the answer.
Yeah,
It's the banksters that are doing it.
They make a fortune out of all this. But they have a particular project with the Israel project, you know. This is a big deal to them. They want to have a state. So they attach great importance to the control of this state of Israel and other states like ours. They want control of all the states. You know, this is why China is the boogeyman now. China and Russia. These are states they don't have control over. Now, some people will say, "Oh, Putin is is also cucked, leader as well." I don't buy that, but even if he were, China for sure they don't have control over China. They do have trade with them, but they don't have control over them.
Right, but they do have control over almost all monetary systems, which is why they get the United States into these fights every time for people who are trying to leave the monetary system.
Right.
Exactly. Because they tried to leave the petrodollar. We went to Libya because Gaddafi was doing the same exact thing Hitler was doing, giving out interest-free loans to the people and kicking out the central banks.
National socialism, in effect. Yeah.
Yes.
He wanted to socialize the oil industry. He got off of the fiat currency that they had imposed, and he was a real threat to the order because they want a complete homogeneous block of nations, you know, with Israel as the ruling nation, Jerusalem as the capital.
That's right. And you know, as a Christian, you know, I love Jerusalem because I read the Bible and I know that when Jesus Christ comes back, he's going to return to Jerusalem, you know. So, you know, I don't want to say, I'm not going to sit here and say all Jews are bad. I'm not going to ever say that ever, because it's just not true. That's like saying
it's not about Jews. I don't even know what these people are. I'm going to be honest. What the hell are they? I think it's a club. And I'm talking about the upper echelons here, not some people like Jewish kids on the street. I have a lot of Jewish friends. In fact, my children grew up in almost a Jewish neighborhood, very nearby. Went to a high school, mostly Jewish kids, and got great friends with these people. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about this mob that goes by the name of Jews. Okay, that runs the state of Israel. That controls our government, okay, and they call themselves Jews. That's what I'm going with, okay. That's what I'm saying. And I hope that's clear. I don't know how much more clear I could be about that.
And I feel the same way. And I'll actually apologize right now out in the open air for some of the things I've said on Twitter. Because I've used the term Jews many times when I'm talking about it. But really, you want to know what? The actual real Torah-believing, God of Judah believing Jews, the Messianic Jews, they hate Zionists. They hate Benjamin Netanyahu. Yeah. They hate what they did to the country of Israel. Because before 1948, when it was still Palestine under British rule, that was a place where Christians, Jews, and
Muslims
all rested their head, and they kind of just made it work. And not to say there wasn't troubles or tribulations or anything like that, but they made it work. But once 1948 came and the Zionists, the secular state of Israel, created by the Rothschilds, who are the most evil family in the entire world history, ever.
Yeah.
When they started that, not only did they force out then they, in 1967, they forced out the Palestinians as much as they could, but they also forced out Jews, the actual people who had lineage to this.
Let me give you an analogy here about this. Everybody knows the mafia was associated with Italians, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you talked about the mafia, you weren't being accused of being anti-Italian generally.
Right.
unless you were, Well, this is the same thing. I'm not saying all Jews are anything. We're talking about a mob.
Right.
Okay, like the mafia was to the Italians, this mob is to the Jewish people. They get lumped together. Sometimes, people slurred, Italians for calling them mobsters when they probably weren't, calling them mafia when they probably weren't. But I mean, it was an Italian, it was an Italian mob, right?
Right.
This is a Jewish mob. That they're Jewish and they're a mob, so it's a Jewish mob.
But my I guess my thing is that, for me personally, I feel like I need to separate the state of Israel from the Jews because they're not the same. It's not the same.
Not all of them, though. Not all of them, because you have an international class of, Jewish billionaires that are not living in Israel. They're part of the diaspora, and they're supporting Israel. They're trying to force our government to do things for Israel. They're buying off our politicians. So it isn't just Israel as such. I always put Israel in quotes, because not like the left does, because they're saying it shouldn't exist. That's not what I'm saying it for. What I mean is it's more coextensive than the state of Israel. It's a broader network.
Right. And that's something I want to be better about, me personally, or whatever, just because I don't want to sit there and say like a whole group of people are bad.
No, it's just like the Italians had a mob. That doesn't mean all Italians were part of the mob.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Exactly. But there's a lot of us, myself included, be like, well, the Jews and the Jews and the Jews. No, it's Israel, not the Jews, because that's not necessarily the same. Like I said, the people of Israel were trying to get the hell out of there, and the guy stopped the passports.
Right.
So it's just
they've killed their own people, so-called. Look, don't forget this. A lot of the rabbinical traditions were very totalitarian. These rabbis ruled with an iron fist over these Jewish communities. So there's always been a divide between the ruling class amongst Jews and the hoi polloi. The same thing is true now, and they don't care about these people. They'll kill them, as they've demonstrated, like they did on October 7th, like they've done elsewhere. They'll kill their own. It doesn't matter. This is a mob. Look, mobs often kill their own people. Sometimes they kill their own members.
Yep. But the only difference between the mob and them is the mob actually took care of their communities. I mean, that's the big difference. Like the mob folks actually took care of their own communities, to where like this mob we have in power right now is only for them and them only, and they will kill everybody who's in their way. And that's a sad state of affairs. But man, we are working on like an hour and a half on this show. I don't want to keep too much longer, man. But dude, tell us how we can find you. Tell us about how we can get your books. Explain the pack a little bit more. Let's go.
Yeah. So, for my books and stuff, it's michaelrectenwald.com. One word, michaelrectenwald.com. But the pack can be found at aza-pack.com, as a pack, or if you just search, even on Google, AZA-PAC, it will be the first result. And that's amazing. We have good SEO already. And, the pack is trying to pool the resources of everyday Americans to compete with this extortion racket and bribery apparatus called APAC and all of the other lobbies. We're trying to get the American will expressed politically through this movement. Get our actual citizens' will expressed in the government. Right now, we don't have any control. We don't have any say about what happens there. It's being run by and for Israel. So, and I put Israel in quotes, as I put it before. So, yeah. Get involved. Donate. Look, we're funding. We're running a candidate against Randy Fine in Florida. Yeah, we're trying to take that beat that disgusting, vulgar, despicable person, whatever he is.
Keep going. I'm gonna pull up Randy Fine's APAC money right now. Let's see how much money Randy Fine gets. You can APAC tracker. APAC tracker is a gem, actually. Oh, wrong button here. Randy Fine. Let's see. Randy Fine.
230 million is my guess.
I hit the wrong buttons. Let's see here. 402,550.
Oh, okay, not millions.
Not as much as you think.
Yeah,
400. We probably put $402,553 of cheeseburgers in his stomach. I guarantee you that, because that son of a bitch.
Of course, I meant thousands, hundreds of thousands, because the millions come up in the big national elections like Trump and like presidency and so forth. That's where they put the hundreds of millions of dollars in there.
Oh yeah,
just incredible numbers.
Oh yeah. But Mr. Rectenwald, my friend, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad I got to have this conversation with you, just because we shared a common thread through all this stuff. And I'm glad, that you came out and said, the same thing like me. This is more political than it is religious than anything, because I do understand what the Bible says, but I also understand what the Bible doesn't say. And the Bible does not say that you have to blindly follow genocidal maniacs that blackmail your government and swing their dicks around and swing their power around as much as possible, because they own our government through lobby money and sexual blackmail. The Bible says nothing about that, you guys. So my Christians, please at least wake up to some of that, these people that are like, don't blindly follow a country because of that. Follow the Bible, follow the word. You follow that, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But until next time, Mr. Rectenwald, thank you so much for coming on, y'all. America only, Christ is King, peace, love, and liberty, man. We'll see you next week. Be good.
All right.